Okay, so very good afternoon to all of you and welcome to session 4 of the engagement. But this is the first interaction of the new compact Bhagavad Gita series that we had discussed in the group. And I hope that you would like this shorter, more compact format. So I thought it is best to lay out what we are going to do. So I have this slide here. And this tells you topic wise what we are going to be looking at. So you can see that there are 7 topics, which is Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Sannyasa Yoga, and synthesis of the yogas, and path of surrender to the Lord, and Vishwarupa Darshan, which, if you recall, Rajiv had spoken about in the last session. When I actually took a count slightly more than 90, but just 3 more than 90. So it is 93 shlokas, but for the sake of branding, we will keep it at 90 shlokas. We will not change the 90 shloka that we have in the title, but it's 3 more than 90. So that's the plan. So you can see that we will be systematically covering all the main topics that we have in the Bhagavad Gita and for which the Bhagavad Gita is known for. And of course, the distribution of the shlokas is dependent upon some of the books that I read. And therefore, I will refer to those sources. Different people may have had different choices, but we will stick to one. And definitely this is an improvement over having a very long interminable cycle of going through the chapters one after the other. So hopefully this would be a better impact in terms of the entire plan. Now, let's look at what we mean by yoga. So yoga is a kind of project plan, to use the kind of language that we are used to. So, and of course, the project plan takes you from wherever you are. You might be a confused person. You might be a person with problems that you're facing, challenges, personal, professional. So those are all represented by the little figure that we have on the left side. And it has been India's great tradition that it has created numerous paths, or I mean, if I can use a more modern terminology, project project philosophies for the objective. So the objective we have on the right side, an objective, of course, in the traditional, Sanatana Dharma sense is called moksha or mukti. But then in the more modern interpretations that we have of these two terms, it's called happiness, it's called enlightenment, it's called self-realization, self-actualization, self-awakening, moksha, mukti. And therefore, that's the objective that we have, and we have on the left side, and we have in the middle the various paths. And these are obviously what we are going to be looking at also in our tally of 90 shlokas, 93 shlokas. So Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Sannyasa Yoga, and synthesis. And the Bhagavad Gita has every one of these, obviously, from the very fact that I have chosen them. And the reason why we are able to do all these yogas or all these project plans is that the references to these are scattered across the Gita. So it's not just in one chapter, and therefore, there will be multiple chapters that we would be going through to understand, or rather the selection of the shlokas are from multiple chapters, though there could be a few chapters where there is a concentration of a particular yoga as a topic. So now you would ask me a question, what is this whole moksha business? Because we all hear this word quite often. Moksha prapto. Normally we use the term to mean that the person has died. But, and therefore the question would be, is moksha possible for someone who's living? We use the term in Hindi, Jivan Mukti or Jivan Mukt hai. And there are a lot of terms that float around in the oral tradition that we have in India. So let's look at some definitions of moksha or mukti that I have been able to put together from some of the references that we have, both modern and traditional. So here is a definition that we have of mukti or moksha, which is there for us to discuss and understand. So fulfillment of the deepest urge to wake up and realize our true nature. So obviously it means that we are not aware of our true nature, and therefore we are not having moksha or we are not having mukti. But unless you have the desire to, unless you know that you don't know your true nature, you cannot really realize it. Therefore, you must have the deep urge. The deep urge in our Hindu tradition is called jigyasa or mumukshu, moksha ko prapt karne ki ichha, as it is called. And we want to realize our true nature, which is bhai hum atma hai, हमारा शरीर जो है वो शाश्वत नहीं है. And that's the kind of language that we typically use. So that's one definition that we have. The other one is turning on the inner light and removal of our inner ignorance. Again, something similar, but again, worded slightly differently. So there is some, as you would say, you are not having that viveka, you are not having that wisdom, and somehow, through these project plans. So the whole idea is that the approach to moksha or this deep urge to realize can be through the various yogas that we have spoken about. So they are like, project plans. Now, just to give an engineering example, the kind of power that you want to generate, whether it's thermal power or nuclear power or wind power or tidal power, would depend upon the availability and the kind of resources you have and the location of where you want to establish your power generation. So in the same way, going back to the previous slide, depending upon what kind of person you are, you will choose a project plan. Sorry, I just punched the wrong. Okay, so you will. So therefore, you can choose Jnana Yoga or Karma Yoga or Bhakti Yoga, and we are trying to look at. So the power station looks at generating power, and there is obviously a kind of, kilowatt, kind of situation that when we talk about power generation. So in the same way, when we talk about a project plan for ourselves through any one of the yogas or a combination, we're looking at moksha or mukti, and that mukti means turning on the inner light. So let's look at bullet point 3 in terms of what it defines. Now, this is a very traditional definition. See, moksha is not freedom from artha and kama. What artha, kama provide, moksha cannot give you. See, moksha cannot give you money. Okay. But what moksha provides cannot be provided by artha, kama, and dharma combined. So moksha gives you that inner light. Artha gives you the money. And therefore, we need to understand that each one of this is a slightly different thing. And one should not mix one with the other. And a person who has moksha has also the freedom to pursue artha, kama, and dharma if she or he so chooses. So it is not that one who's got moksha is going to die, number one. Number two, it's not that one who's got moksha will not need money. He will need money, but the whole approach of that person will be with that inner light. Andar ki batti uski jal gayi hai, which is what I'm trying to show in that image that we have on the left side. So there is some understanding that you have which makes you understand life more deeper and better. And therefore, that's what we mean by moksha, which is having a total understanding of life and understanding of who you are. So yoga or the project plan is the light switch that works within us. For each one of us, a different kind of switch may work. So I may be tuned to, Jnana Yoga, you may be tuned to Karma Yoga or, the various yogas that we spoke about. Now let's look at a second page of these definitions. I find this very interesting, so I'm going to read it out for you. So, and it's very, very thoughtful. We think that discussions on self-realization should be held in a lovely spiritual atmosphere in a forest or a cave where nobody irritates us, where nothing is born, nothing dies. The problem is here and now. The battle is here. The problem is here. What I must do about this nagging wife, this drunken husband, I mean, just to give an example, or, troublesome son, or a daughter who does not listen to you. And we have numerous such situations in our own life, or a boss who is terrible. Of course, most of us are out of the boss kind of syndrome. But nevertheless, the point is all about the real problems of life. The need for Bhagavad Gita is here. It must be practiced now. So occasionally you can get away, but do not take your transistor radio. Of course, it's slightly dated. I would say the modern term would be smartphone with you. Sit down and meditate. That will at least prevent you from going mad. The need for self-realization is in the battle of life. I am the creator of this battle. I am the battle. If I run away from the battle, I must return to it. To solve this problem once and for all, I must be here. I must attain self-realization. This body is supposed to be you, but actually it is only potatoes and vegetables. So as the advertisement used to say, ketchup hota kaddu vada, we are also full of all the food that we have taken, but we are obviously more than the food. And that's what we need to understand when we go and attain self-realization, that are we beyond this body? Is there something which is a powerhouse of this body? And if I understand this powerhouse, then I get to know what to do. So obviously, if you are able to link, in fact, one of the modern commentators spoke about the Atma and called it the UPS, uninterruptible power supply that we have within us. So, we will come to that. So this is just for us to get clarity on the objective, right? So we have various ways the objective is described. Now let's go to our plan for understanding what the Bhagavad Gita says about this with respect to moving us from where we are today with all these battles that we have spoken about in this particular slide to how we can get an understanding called self-realization, which enables me to handle any problem, any situation, and be calm and pursue artha and dharma or kama the way I feel, but with absolute clarity of mind. Okay, so in Jnana Yoga itself, see, I just jump back slides because we can do that. We said we look at 30 shlokas. So how are these 30 shlokas distributed in terms of subject? So here is the distribution. So today we are going to be doing serial number 1 and 2. We'll be doing 6 shlokas, and of course we will then pause for a discussion, and obviously in the discussion we will learn as we have realized. So the 7 topics within Jnana Yoga are Atma knowledge, then Sthita Pragya. Pragya we understand is wisdom. So Sthita Pragya is person of steady wisdom. So we'll do the 2 shlokas, 4 plus 2, 6 today. The other topics are control of senses, state of supreme peace, which is Paramashanti, then the self and the Brahman being the universal consciousness that is there behind everything in the universe. And then we look at the 3 guna, Traiguna, and then we look at Prakriti, which is nature. These are all Sanskrit terms. And then we look at ethical teaching. So totally we had 30 shlokas, which you covered. And of course, we'll do at the rate of 5 to 6 shlokas or 4 shlokas, depending upon the topic as well as the time that we have in the particular session itself. So with that, let us launch into the shlokas themselves, and then we can have a discussion. It's now 11:30, so we have another 12:15. So we have another 20-25 minutes to look at these shlokas. So let me put this across to you. Okay, since I've been talking for 15 minutes continuously, I'm going to stop at this point in time, just stop the screen share, and just check with all my colleagues as to any questions they have at this point in time, which we can have a quick discussion about. Any questions from anybody or any thoughts to share?
I have a question.
Yes. Yes.
This self-realization and self-awakening, they both are the same thing or different?
They are the same thing. They are different ways in which people have expressed their understanding. So I have put together all the terms that are used by people, and therefore they are the same thing, except that one emphasizes a particular aspect, the other emphasizes another aspect. So they are the same thing. As an objective, they are the same thing.
Okay.
Rajshekar, when you say 2.14, that means chapter 2 and 14th shloka.
Yes, 2.14. So that's what I mean. And, you can always refer back to whatever Bhagavad Gita you have, and you can check back, when you are, reviewing the learning here. So that's what I mean by 2.14.
Okay.
So we are jumping, we are doing some leapfrogging and jumping around.
That's okay.
Topic-wise. Okay.
Okay.
If there are no further questions, I'll quickly proceed. So I'll go back. Yeah. So Vishwaroop, I don't know whether he had a question. So let me go to screen share once again. Okay. So yeah, where we are, yes. Yeah, so 2.13. So we straight away jump to Atma knowledge, which is our topic. We have 4 shlokas in this today. So let me go to the first shloka. So in the title, number 1 means the first shloka. And the shloka 2.13, as was asked by Sunil, it means the shloka is actually from the second chapter. It is the 13th shloka. And the topic overall is Atma knowledge. So let me chant the shloka and then we look at the meaning and then we'll have a discussion around this. So dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatra na mukhyati. Now, just below the Sanskrit shloka, you have what is called the Anvaya. Anvaya is the prose order of the words. Now, these are all in poetry or in poetry. So you have to reorder the words. So yatha dehinah asmin dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara praptihi dirha tatra na mukhyati is the sentence. And from the sentence, we can actually make out the meaning very easily. Yatha, we understand is there in Hindi also, just like dehinah. Now we have to understand 2 terms. Dehe is body, as we know in Hindi, and dehi is the person who is in the body, and that is the Atma. So the Atma is also called by the term dehi. So yatha dehinah, so just like the dehi, asmin dehe, in this body, what happens? Kaumaram means childhood, yauvanam means youth, jara means old age, tatha dehantara prapti. And therefore, so the dehi, the Atman, passes through in the body through childhood, through youth, and through old age. And thereafter, it goes to another body after dehanta. So dehant also we understand from our knowledge of Hindi, because Hindi and Sanskrit are very closely related. And dehantara prapti. So tatha. So yatha and tatha are the 2 conditions. If A, then B. Correct. So, or in this case, like A, like B. So it's a kind of similarity. So it says just like the dehi passes through the body through various phases, in a similar way, after the body dies, the dehi passes into other bodies also. So that is where the yatha and the tatha come together. And therefore, dhiraha means, jo dheer hota hai, we understand from Hindi, one who's brave. In this case, the Sanskrit term actually means self-composed, one who is not agitated. Tatra, in this situation, right, of the fact that, of course, this is in the context of Arjuna being afraid of all the people he's going to kill. So obviously when you kill, but actually it's only the body that is killed, because the law of nature is that the dehi will pass into another body. So if you say that you have killed Dronacharya, Dronacharya's Atma will pass into another body. So Dronacharya is really not killed, so to speak. And therefore, the self-composed man does not allow himself to be disturbed and blinded by this. So that's the English translation that we have. Dirha Tatvanamyati. So just to read out the English translation, as the soul. Now, soul is being used in English, but obviously soul is not, the exact word is the Atma. So I will say, as the Atma passes physically through childhood and youth and age, so it passes through onto the changing of the body, and the self-composed man does not allow himself to be disturbed and blinded by this. So the exact Hindi, because Hindi also has an impact in terms of our understanding, जिस प्रकार देहधारी आत्मा को इस देह में कौमार, यौवन और बुढ़ापा प्राप्त होते हैं, आत्मा इनमें से होकर गति करता जाता है. So the आत्मा progresses through this. उसी प्रकार उसे इस देह से दूसरे देह की प्राप्ति होती है. इस विषय में विवेकी मनुष्य मोहित नहीं होता. So therefore you have to be a viveki to not get confused by this, because obviously the Atma remains the same. It's the physical outer appearance that changes, and that's exactly what has been shown in this image that I picked up from the internet, which shows obviously from birth all the way up to old age and death. the entire matter. But the constant is, as you can see, there's a little thread there, shown in white. So the constant is the Atma, which does not change. So this is the first principle or the first bit of knowledge. Of course, we all know this, but this is how it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. And there's a little comment about this from Radhakrishnan. So every shloka, I have a second slide for that, which is a super comment from one of the commentators, which I studied, and it kind of explains and gives an insight a little more than just what I have said. So the human being makes himself fit for immortality by passing through a series of births and deaths. The changes in the body do not mean changes in the Atma. So that is the key. That's the key learning that we have. None of the embodiments is permanent. So the embodiment is how we are. So the embodiment in this body of mine as Rajshekhar is not permanent, because this body will last for 70, 80, 90, whatever, is the span of time given to this body. It is not permanent. And therefore, the Atma will move to the next body and further continue, so that it is making itself fit for immortality. So ultimately, you pass through various births and deaths because you're making yourself better and better. And unless there is an improvement that you chart out in this life, you will not be progressing. See, every life has to successively make you, but the whole concept of mukti is, in this life itself, we try to make ourselves perfect and try to have that whole inner light within us. So that is 2.13, the first shloka that we have. Then the second shloka is Avinashi tu tad vidhi yena sarvam idam tatam vinasham avyasyasya na kashtit kartum arhati. So Avinashi tat tu vidhi. So tat is that, right? Avinashi, we understand Avinashi is imperishable. Tu vidhi, indeed, you should know. Vidhi is from, vidya, or, vidhi is, jano. So Avinashi tat tu vidhi, what should we know? Yena idam sarvam tatam, right? So all this is, which we see around us, the universe around us, is Avinashi. So not only is the Atma within the body without destruction, even what we see outside also, there is no destruction. So this is extending the rule from the Atma within to the universe around us. So the second statement follows from the first. Now in the Anvaya, which is the reordering in prose, there are two sentences. So first sentence is, know that to be imperishable, by which all this is pervaded. Sorry, the spelling mistake there. This whole universe is pervaded. Therefore, asya avyayasya vinasham kaschit na kartum arhati. So for this avyaya is jiska vyay nahi hota hai, which is again in Hindi, jiska it is imperishable. Vinash. Nobody can do the vinash of this particular Atma, or this particular extension of the Atma. And the Hindi version of this is, किंतु जिस आत्मा से यह संपूर्ण विश्व विस्तृत हुआ है, उसे तू अविनाशी समझ, इस अविनाशी आत्मा का विनाश करने में कोई भी समर्थ नहीं है. So this cannot be destroyed. Now this is a very interesting shloka, not just for the meaning that it tells you, but for a broader picture that it gives, which I am going to now trace in the second slide about this shloka. So it says, so super comment is from Swami Virajeshwara. Now, incidentally, in the Purva Ashram of Swami Virajeshwara, he was a PhD in chemical engineering from Rutgers University in the US, and he was working in IBM's research department for many years. And then, of course, he came to India, he took sannyas, and then, he did a lot of, tapasya. So this is the Bhagavad Gita on which he has commented. It's called the Science of the Bhagavad Gita. So what does he say about this? So he says, corresponding to this verse, there's a law in physics, the law of conservation of energy, also called first law of thermodynamics, which states that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. The law of conservation of mass and energy resulting from Einstein's theory of relativity states that in any system, the sum of mass and energy remains constant. Science, being purely materialistic discipline, does not go beyond matter to inquire into the nature of the Atman and Brahman, but it has come strikingly close to identifying the entity, matter, energy, which has a striking similarity to the description of the Atman in this verse. So obviously, the Atman has, it is from the property of the Atman that it cannot be created, it cannot be destroyed. Does matter and energy get the property of conservation? So we need to understand the double meaning of this particular comment. So science is trying to proceed towards understanding things beyond the material world also currently, but it has still not reached there because modern science does not accept the Atma as an entity, modern Western science at least. And therefore, what they are enunciating is law of conservation of energy or law of conservation of mass and energy is a reflection of the law of the Atma, which is obviously similar in nature. So it's a very, very interesting, take off on the entire concept. Now let's look at Shloka 2.20, which is again about the Atma knowledge. So let me chant the Shloka. Na jayate mriyate va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyah ajo nityah shashvatoyam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. When we do the reordering, which is called the Anvaya, that's a new term perhaps for some of you. I am kadachit na jayate. I am this kadachit. Kadachit we also understand. Kabhi bhi. Na jayate is not born. So we can directly trace the English translation word to word. I am kadachit na jayate. This is not born. Mriyate va nava. Nor does it die. Bhutva bhuyah na abhavitah. It is a thing that comes into being once and passing away will not go into being again, which means once it is born and it will stay and therefore it will never fade away. There's no fading away of this Atma. And therefore, what is the property statement? Ajo nityah. Yeh ajah means it is unborn. Nityah, ancient. Shashvatah, sempiternal, which means always existing. Purano, always there. Na hanyate hanyamane sharire. So when you destroy the body, the Atma does not get destroyed, and that is the property of the Atma. And we can see that in Hindi also. यह आत्मा कभी भी उत्पन्न नहीं होती, न मरती है, और न यह कोई ऐसा पदार्थ ही है जो एक बार अस्तित्व धारण करके चले जाने पर फिर भी कभी अस्तित्व न धारण कर सके. So it will always, manifest itself again and again. ये जन्म रहित है, नित्य है, सनातन है, पुरातन है. शरीर की हत्या होने पर यह हत नहीं होता. Now I have a very interesting comment on this, which you will love. Okay. So in the material world, there are 6 features. There is creation, there is individuation with name and form, there is growth of a larger size, and there is changeability or transformability, there is decay, and there is perishing, becoming non-existent. So let me give you an example which Bishwaroop will appreciate because he's been in the engineering and he's a mechanical engineer. So there is the birth of a bearing, and then you give a bearing a name like 7204, and then you put that bearing into a system, so there's a growth or attainment of a larger size. And then there is always a wear and tear that happens in a bearing, which is the changeability. So no matter how much you grease it, the bearing will have to, slowly get transformed. And then there is a decay, which means that the bearing balls don't work properly. And finally, you have to discard the bearing. I'm sure that all of you, given your different engineering experiences, will relate to this entire concept. Now the Atma is exactly the opposite of the material world. So while there is creation, the Atma in the shloka is Ajah, unborn. While there is individuation with name and form, we have a statement, Na ayam bhutva abhita vanam, that is always in existence and is not dependent upon manifestation. So there is no individuation at all. Then growth and attainment of larger size, it is Purana. So there is no integration that happens because it has always existed. Changeability is not there because it is Shashvat, it is constant. There is no decay because it is Nitya, and there is no perishing because it is Na Hanyate. So this is a wonderful chart which tells you why when we are caught up in the material world, we are not able to understand the Atma, because it's the exact opposite of the material world, which is why modern science finds it difficult to accept anything which has properties diametrically opposite to the material world. So this is something that we can pick up from this shloka. We have 5 more minutes to go before we start our discussion. And then we have shloka 2.38, which is Atma knowledge again. So therefore, what is the conclusion that we should arrive from all this? Sukha dukhe same kritva labha labho jaya jayo tatho yuddha yujyasa naivam papam avapsyasi. So looking at the reordering, jaya ajayo, which is victory and defeat, labh alabho, which is loss and gain, labh rather so gain and loss, sukha dukhe, which is happiness and unhappiness, same kritva, balance it out, make it the same, same kritva tatha yuddha yujyasa. So this is advice to Arjuna, saying that balancing out these opposites, then you should go and fight the battle. Evam, when you do like this, papam na avapsyasi, you will not be incurring or gathering sin. So that's the English translation that we find. Make grief and happiness, loss and gain, victory and defeat equal and to thy soul, and then turn to battle, then you will not incur sin. And in Hindi it is सुख और दुख को, लाभ और हानि को, जय और पराजय को समान समझकर युद्ध में प्रवृत्त हो, ऐसे करने से तुझे पाप नहीं लगेगा. Now you'll ask me a question. While this is the statement which is indicating the mental attitude, how is this about Atma knowledge? Where is the Atma knowledge in this? Because in the previous shlokas we had the properties of the Atma. Here we had again a property of the Atma. Here also we had a basic definition of how the Atma behaves. Then your logical question will be, how is this related to Atma? Because it is dealing with something in the mind. And therefore we have a super comment, which is from Swami Vidya Prakashananda. He wrote a book called Gita Makarandam. So he says that when you are balanced in all this, then when the manas is kept in a state of equanimity, the Atma is reflected in the buddhi. So I have a little diagram on the right side. You can say that red dot is the body, then that cream colored is the sense, indriya. Then you have manas, which is mind. Then we have intellect, which is buddhi. Then we have spirit, which is the Atma. These are all, of course, English terms. So when we make labh and alabh, jay and ajay and sukh and dukh equal, then our manas is calm. When the manas is calm, that is when the buddhi is influenced more by the Atma. So the Atma is reflected in the buddhi when the manas is calm, and the manas is calm only when we have equality of our reactions to sukha and dukkha, profit and loss, and victory and defeat. So that is how this shloka forms a part of the Atma knowledge. Okay, so probably we can do one more shloka, so 5. So therefore, this is looking at who is a person of steady wisdom, right? Sthita Pragya. So this is the next topic that we have. If you recall, I had earlier, I'll just again go back. We will be doing, so we have done Atma knowledge 4 shlokas. Now we'll be doing person of steady wisdom 2 shlokas. So let me go to those 2 shlokas now, hopefully. Okay. So what does the shloka say? Jnana Vijnana Triptatma Kutastho Vijitendriya Yukta Ityuchate Yogi Samaloshtashma Kanchana. So Jnanam and Vijnanam, knowledge and applied knowledge, or knowledge and experience, Tripta Atma, Tripta, happy. Atma is not the Atma in terms of the spirit, but Atma as an individual. That's how the Atma has got multiple meanings. So here, of course, the commentators help us understand which meaning to take. Kutastha. Kutastha means usko kutne par bhi change nahi hota. That's what it means. It means anvil actually, which we are used in the smithy shop, if you recall first year engineering, the workshop that we did. So kutastha means anvil. So the individual is unshakable like the anvil. Vijitaha, indriya. He has won his battles with the indriyas. Samaloshta ashma kanchana. So he regards as equal. Loshta is mud, ashma is stone, and kanchana is gold. So when you are able to look at this equally, yogi yukta, then you are indeed a fully integrated yogi. Iti uchyate, ऐसा बोला गया है और ऐसा कहा गया है. So the yogin who is satisfied with self-knowledge, tranquil and self-poised, master of the senses, regards alike clod, which is mud, stone and gold, is said to be in true yoga. And the Hindi version is, जो आत्मज्ञान से तृप्त है, जो निश्चल है, निर्विकार है, जिसने अपनी इंद्रियों को अपने वश में कर लिया है, ऐसे ढेले, जो ढेले पत्थर और सोने को समान समझता है, ऐसा योगी युक्त कहा जाता है. So you must be wondering, this is impossible. How can gold and how can stone and how can mud be the same? So there's a very interesting comment which explains this. And this is from, so C. Radhakrishnan is a physicist and he's a Malayali and he's written a commentary on the Gita. So there's an interesting way he has translated this, which I want to share with you. I think this will be the last shloka we do before we go into discussion. The one who is content with jnana, which is knowledge gathered, and vijnana, wisdom gained from the practical experience of that knowledge with regard to the Atma, stable and complete control over his senses, considers mud, stone, and gold on equal footing. He is called a Yoga Yukta. So what does this equal footing mean is there in the commentary. So he says that wisdom is man's greatest asset, repeats the Gita again and again. Wisdom is that leaves nothing more to get wise about, is the essence of the universe, Ishvara. Beyond the Atma, there's nothing more to know. In the light of this, there is no difference between any two things or phenomena. They are all the Atma in a sense. In that perception, mud and gold are the same. This does not mean the yogi should overlook worldly differences. No yogi, however accomplished, can eat mud instead of food. So obviously, when we say that mud and gold and everything is the same, we mean, in essence, it is the same. Obviously, in real life, there are differences in value as well as perception. So probably I think we can go into this also. So I think we will stop here because I don't want to, hurry through this. So I'm going to stop here because I'm very happy to have a discussion on these 5 shlokas that we've done. So let me seek out. So what are the chat questions that I have? Okay, so these are all. So first, Sunilji Garg, do you feel the concept of Atma has been introduced to reduce the fear of dying among the masses? No, not really. I mean, while it does reduce the fear of dying, it is also something that is there because otherwise a human being is just a complex bag of biochemistry, right? So what is it that drives this biochemistry is a big question that we have to ask ourselves. Because if you put all the chemicals that we have in a human being in one test tube, that test tube will not exhibit the characteristics of a human being. Therefore, there has to be something which differentiates the chemicals, which drives them, which coordinates them. So that coordinating agency, that UPS is called the Atma. And once you know this, obviously you will have no fear of death. So I think personally, I don't think it's a concept introduced just to reduce the fear of death. It is something that is an explanation of why you are alive, because prana is one of the manifestations of Atma. जब हम हिंदी में बोलते हैं आपके प्राण चले गए, तो then you are dead, no? So the coordinating factor of all these biochemicals has gone out, and therefore the Atma is not a concept, but it is a reality. But yes, I think Sunil has a question.
Rajshekhar, I feel that as per your explanation, then every living being, whether plants or animals, should have Atma. Then
Yes.
Does Gita throw some light over this aspect of it, or it talks about human beings only?
No. In fact, as we go to chapter 7, everything in the world is related to the Atma. And in chapter 7, there is a shloka which says that the Atma is a string which binds all living creatures. Sarvani Bhutani. That is a statement that is also used here. So all living creatures, in fact, even the stone has an Atma, except that Atma mein chetna nahi hai. Usme chetna nahi hai. Awareness is not there. So the one thing, so the Atma factor is common. It is called Paramatma or Brahman. So it is common to all. It is common to all, to answer your question.
And different people in the different world may not believe the concept of Atma, because I know some people who do not believe this concept at all. Some cultures do not believe in this concept. So how do we differentiate that? In that case, it should be universal concept. It should not be particularly to our continent or our country only.
Yeah. Point taken. And while different religions like, say, Christianity or like Islam or the Abrahamic religions may not accept the logic of Atma, they do have a concept called soul, which is slightly different from Atma, because English and Sanskrit have a difference. But modern science is slowly moving to the idea that, especially when you go to particle physics and nuclear physics and quantum physics, you will find that they come to a point where physics is not able to explain. And unless you hypothesize that there is a concept, at least from the point of view of science, called Atman, फंडे जो है clear नहीं होते. Whereas in India, we have always postulated Atma, realized the Atma, and then that is why the scientific achievements in the past, at least not now, have been very, very fantastic and dramatic when it comes to Indian past history.
Then please differentiate between Atma, soul, and spirit.
Okay. Atma, soul, and spirit. So soul and spirit are typical English equivalents which don't have complete equality. So soul is used in the Christian sense and spirit is used as a synonym. In fact, I will now pull out a book and I will read from there. I don't know how many of you have heard of Rajiv Malhotra. Rajiv Malhotra, he's an Indian who lives in the US, and he has a book called Sanskrit Non-Translatables. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
तो आत्मा का कोई ट्रांसलेशन है नहीं बॉस. हम उसको जब अंग्रेजी में पेलते हैं तो सोल बोलते हैं, स्पिरिट बोलते हैं, एंड जब गूगल में सर्च करते हैं तो यही निकलता है. बट ट्रूली स्पीकिंग आत्मा का, भाई अगर आप हिंदी बोलते हैं तो समझेंगे, संस्कृत बोलते हैं तो समझेंगे, या संस्कृत पढ़ते हैं तो समझेंगे, कोई भी इंडियन लैंग्वेज बोलेंगे, यू विल अंडरस्टैंड आत्मा इंट्यूटिवली. लेकिन अंग्रेजी में उसका कोई इक्विवेलेंट है नहीं, बिकॉज सोल, at least from the way the Christians have defined it, is very, very different. But because हम लोग जो हिंदी में बात नहीं कर रहे हैं, अंग्रेजी में बात कर रहे हैं, we use the word soul. But strictly speaking, that's why I have said Atma knowledge. I have not said soul knowledge. But बोलते बोलते निकल जाता है. So soul is just an equivalent English term, but it is not what Atma is. We need to understand that. And I would very strongly, I mean, मैं तो recommend करते जाऊंगा, ये book पढ़ो, वो book पढ़ो. It's up to you. So this is a book which is worth reading because it will tell you 56 terms. जैसे मैं आपको quickly बोलता हूँ क्या क्या terms हैं, इनका कोई अंग्रेजी में equivalent नहीं है. जैसे आपके terms हो गए, आत्मा हो गया, माया हो गया, जीव हो गया, ओम हो गया, शक्ति हो गया, प्रकृति हो गया, इन सबका कोई अंग्रेजी equivalent है नहीं. उसको आप nature बोलेंगे तो गलत है. So that is just to answer your question.
Okay.
I will now have others to respond. So anyone else would like to share their thoughts on what we did today?
राजशेखर, आपने कमेंट्री ली है, बहुत ही बढ़िया ली है कमेंट्री, एंड दैट इज अ वेरी गुड सिमिलैरिटी, लाइक मैटर एंड एनर्जी एंड बॉडी एंड आत्मा, बहुत ही बढ़िया लिया है. सेकेंड थिंग, ये जब हम कहते हैं कि आत्मा न मरती है न अविनाशी है, तो वाई देयर इज नो कंटिन्यूटी, मतलब कंटिन्यूटी क्यों नहीं रहती कि हम क्या हुआ पिछले जन्म में और आगे के जन्म में, हम कभी कोई कंटिन्यूटी नहीं रहती, हमें पता नहीं पिछले जन्म में इस आत्मा ने क्या किया था.
Correct. So उसके लिए you have to understand the further theory. So आत्मा जो है कोर में है, उसके ऊपर में जो है बुद्धि है, उसके ऊपर में आपका मनस है. तो आपका जो मनस और जो बुद्धि है, they change and they have the memory.
Okay.
तो ये जो है, ये वाला केसिंग निकल जाता है. जब आप मरते हो तो आपका मेमोरी निकल जाता है. So that's why you don't remember what happened. I mean, rare case में people do remember, otherwise you don't remember. लेकिन आपका जो क्वालिटी रहता है वो आपका संस्कार बन के रहता है. जो आपकी टेंडेंसीज होती हैं वो जो है चिपक जाती हैं आत्मा के साथ, लेकिन आपकी मेमोरी नहीं चिपकती. नहीं नहीं, आप जो है परेशान हो जाओगे कि भाई मैं पिछले जन्म में ये था, उसके पिछले जन्म में वो था। तो इसलिए कहा गया है कि ओनली कृष्ण भगवान रिमेम्बर्स ऑल हिज जन्मास. Ordinary human beings are not given that privilege. But the logic is memory gets wiped out, but tendencies don't get wiped out. Tendencies are ना हमारी सबकी कुछ ना कुछ टेंडेंसी है, संस्कार हैं जो हमारे इनर टेंडेंसीज हैं, वो हमारे साथ चिपकते हैं. एंड दैट इज द रीजन व्हाई वी से we should evolve in this, entire process. So Deepak Yadav का एक question है, एक जो how is it that these conditions you get sin? So see, the basic sin, Deepak ji, is when you don't evolve yourself. अगर आप अपने evolution के लिए जो भी कर्म करना है वो उसको करना चाहिए. तो अर्जुन के लिए युद्ध was the next action. If Arjun does not do Yudh, then he will not evolve. It doesn't mean that I should go and do Yudh, because that may not be the logical step for me. So Gita का एक universal aspect है और एक very very particular aspect है. तो particular aspect के तौर पे कहा गया है कि आपको युद्ध करना है, battle करना है. But it means that we cannot escape from our situation. So that's what we mean by saying, the battle is yours. जो भी आपके लाइफ में सिचुएशन है, जो आपका यूनिक सिचुएशन है, उससे आप भाग नहीं सकते. तो अर्जुन का यूनिक सिचुएशन वो बैटल था महाभारत का. बट आवर पर्टिकुलर सिचुएशन में भी मे बी द जॉब आई एम इन, मे बी द फैमिली, मे बी व्हाटएवर, प्रॉपर्टी, कुछ भी हो सकता है. ऑल ऑफ अस आर व्हाट 59 60, सो वी हैव बीन थ्रू लाइफ इन इट्स मल्टीपल डायमेंशंस. सो इट कैन बी एनीथिंग. सो यू मस्ट फाइट दैट विद अ balanced mind. Okay, that is what it says. It doesn't say, and therefore you will not have sin. That is the logic. So I hope I have been able to address Deepak's question, which he had put on the chat. Deepak ji.
Yes, clear, very clear.
Okay, sir. Okay, then Rajesh ji.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah, thank you so much for such a nice presentation. I can understand the preparation behind it, lots of pains and courage behind it. So I want to ask two questions. First is कि आत्मा जन्म नहीं, मतलब कभी बनती नहीं है, तो there must be some T0 and other thing कि to feel the आत्मा, it is said कि you have to have a balance. सुख और दुख में समान भाव सब तो आपको फील होगा. इज देयर एनी अदर वे कि हम महसूस कर सके कि आत्मा से इंटरेक्ट कर सके, फील कर सके, इट कैन बी फेल्ट. दीस टू क्वेश्चंस.
हाँ, तो इसके लिए जो महर्षियों ने कहा है उसका नाम है मनोनाश. मनोनाश मीन्स आपका माइंड जो है बैलेंस रहता है, आपके एजिटेटेड मन का नाश हो जाता है. ये नहीं कि आपकी थिंकिंग का नाश होता है. जब वो लोग मनोनाश बोलते हैं तो एजिटेशन जो है आपके मन में, जब एजिटेशन का नाश हो जाता है, जिसका और एक और पॉइंट है कि आप दैट इज you basically are able to control the reaction. You see something, you get agitated. You hear something, you get agitated. You smell something, you get agitated. So when you can stop and block that agitation, then your mind is calm. When your mind is calm, then your buddhi, yes, so balanced. Because one negative way of interpreting this is I will experience Atma only when I die, because only when I die my mind is not working. But that is not the logic. The logic, and this happens to us, no? When you are totally focused on something, there is no other thought in your mind. Let's say you're playing cricket, your only thought is the next ball. So why do players get out? They get out because they are thinking of other things, right? They are not able to focus. So one of the things they,
ও দীপকর যে তুমি বেরিয়ে যাচ্ছ না, আমি তো ফেরত নিয়ে চলে আসবো.
So Bishrup, I think you've gone on, you have to go on mute. Bishrup,
no, actually,
yeah.
Okay. Am I audible now?
Yes, you're audible. So
am I audible?
Yes, very much.
Actually, what has happened is we have, I think, as far as I am concerned, we are going too fast. So I thought, can we just summarize what sloka-wise what we have actually tried to say? Because first sloka, what I have understood is we have used a number of terminology. We have just tried to explain some terminology. Then you have gone to the concept of Atma. That's what I have understood. What I can recapitulate. So can you just with your expertise, can you just tell us what we need to know, what we need to concentrate actually?
So it is very simple. We just need to appreciate that we are both Atma and the physical body. We are a combination of two principles. Now, we normally don't know the Atma because the physical body and the reactions of the physical body is what we see all the time. So what we need to pick from this is simple, that I am more than my physical body, I am more than my mind, I am more than my buddhi, I am also the Atma, jo mere andar hai. That is the learning that we have.
Okay. That's okay.
Yeah, so that is the straight takeaway from the first 4 shlokas. Yeah.
Okay. That is understood.
Yeah. So let me come to Prakash. Prakash for his thoughts.
हाँ जी, ये मुझे ये कहना है सर कि आज हम ह्यूमन बीइंग हैं, तो हमारे पास बुद्धि है, इंटेलेक्ट है, ये सब है, तो हम अच्छे कर्म करेंगे, खराब कर्म करेंगे। लेकिन जब मान लीजिए हम जानवर हैं या कुछ और इतनी सारी योनियां हैं 84 लाख, तो वहां भी हमें ऐसा चांस मिलता है कि हम अच्छे कर्म करें, खराब कर्म करें, क्योंकि हम वापस ह्यूमन बीइंग कब बनेंगे ऐसा कोई प्रूफ तो पता नहीं है कि नहीं है, हम मान लेते हैं, लेकिन हमको जो दूसरी योनि मिलेगी तो हम अच्छे कर्म कर, उसमें हमें पता है, सेंस ही नहीं होगा कि हम अच्छे कर्म कर सकते हैं, तो वो क्या चीज है?
हाँ, सो द बिग क्वेश्चन इज कि ये जो 84 लाख योनियां हैं वहां से इवॉल्व होके हम ह्यूमन बीइंग कैसे बनते हैं, दैट इज अ बिग क्वेश्चन दैट वी हैव, एंड उसका मैं भी आंसर ढूंढ नहीं पाया, इन द सेंस एक अच्छा शेर हो सकता है, बुरा शेर हो सकता है, अच्छा गीदड़ हो सकता है, बुरा गीदड़ हो सकता है, पता नहीं। So how that evolution happens is entirely, I think, the Lord's will and wish. लेकिन इतना तो है कि जो आदमी है उसके पास फ्री विल है जो कि एनिमल के पास नहीं है, that much we know. तो अब हम क्या हम गीदड़ से बन के अभी गीदड़ योनि से हम अभी इस योनि में आए या हाथी योनि से आए, we don't know. All we know is अभी हम फिलहाल ह्यूमन बीइंग हैं, and we must make use of this, because really to you know, see, Prakash, you asked a wonderful question. मैंने भी अपना बहुत सिर फोड़ा है, you know, I've gone around all these commentaries. Nobody answers that question कि evolution कैसे हुआ, उसका आंसर नहीं है. So it is one of those mysteries कि, and this 84 लाख योनि is a very standard phrase that is used. उस योनि से घुस के क्या हुआ, not known, sir.
पर अभी हम ह्यूमन बीइंग के बाद कहाँ जाएंगे, या वापस ह्यूमन बीइंग बनेंगे तो हम और इम्प्रूव करें अपने आप को, पता नहीं है ना क्या होगा.
हाँ, तो if you are improving as a human being, then क्या होता है, there are you know 7 you know 7 लोग होते हैं, भू भुवः स्वः मह जन तप, जो कि व्याहृति बोलते हैं. So you keep rising up, you know, those ranks. Okay. And then you become better and better. That is the theory that we have in the Hindu tradition. So human beings के scaling up का है, वो है, I can share the information with you, but how, and you know, human beings के पतन का भी है, जैसे जो है नरक जो है, you know, 7 टाइप के, अतल वितल सुतल पतल, ऐसे 7 नाम है, तो वो भी है. लेकिन उसमें जो है ये 84 लाख योनियां भी अतल वितल सुतल पतल में है, उसका कहीं you know किसी पुराण में कोई रेफरेंस हो, नहीं पता नहीं.
ठीक है, thank you.
Yeah. So what time? Yeah. So I think we are at 1:15 now. So yeah, Rajiv Kumar ji, आपके पास any thoughts from your side?
नहीं, राजशेखर, ये सब समझने के लिए पहले एक बार कर्मा थ्योरी भी पूरा पढ़ना पड़ेगा.
हाँ सर.
उसके बाद से ये सब जितने भी डिस्कशन हुआ है सब समझ में आ जाएगी.
बिल्कुल सर. So that is good. तो मैं क्या करता हूँ, I will now, okay, if you look at the deck, you know, क्योंकि I was taken in by what Prakash told me in the first meeting, भाई हमें कुछ homework दे दो, तो कुछ homework है. मैंने I have in the slides I have given some set of shlokas to read to understand this further. थोड़ा ये कर्मा थियरी के बारे में मैं कुछ मसाला जो है I will put it together and I'll share in the group so that you know that becomes reading. So we have done only 5 shlokas today. So we'll take up the 6th shloka in the next class along with the next 4 shlokas. Okay? So on that count, so thank you so much. for your patience and for joining in. And I look forward to meeting you next Sunday. Take care, sir. All the best.
One more question.
Sure,
question.
Sure. Who is it from?
दीपक यादव.
हाँ जी, बोलिए.
आपने कहा कि जो आपका ज्ञान योग, कर्म योग, सबके ऑब्जेक्टिव्स आपने दिखाए कि इससे ये ऑब्जेक्टिव होगा जो हम, तो क्या ऐसा भी पॉसिबल है कि दिस फिजिकल लाइफ में वो ऑब्जेक्टिव ना अचीव हो और आगे जाके अचीव हो जाए अगर हम ज्ञान योग, कर्म योग और वो सब कर रहे हैं?
हाँ, तो इसीलिए सेकंड चैप्टर में एक श्लोक है जहां भगवान ने कहा है कि अगर आप थोड़ा भी ये योग करेंगे तो उसमें आपको बहुत फायदा होगा. इन द सेंस इंक्रीमेंटल प्रोग्रेस इज एक्सेप्टेबल, बिकॉज इंक्रीमेंटल प्रोग्रेस से ही मामला आगे बढ़ता है. तो आपने कुछ जो किया, इनफैक्ट आई मीन इसका जो भागवत में एक स्टोरी है कि एक बंदा जो है, आई मीन टिपिकल भागवत स्टोरी, एक बंदा जो है महापापी था जिंदगी भर पाप करते गया, लेकिन बंदे के बेटे का नाम जो है नारायण था, तो इसलिए उसने मरते दम में नारायण नारायण बोल के अपने बेटे को पुकारा, और क्योंकि उसने नारायण बोला वो जो है वैकुंठ पहुंच गया. So this is just to illustrate that even a little bit of good can take us far. You cannot take the story too literally कि भाई हम जिंदगी भर पाप करेंगे और लास्ट मिनट में नारायण बोलेंगे और हमारा जो है बेड़ा पार हो जाएगा. But the logic is that even a little bit of karma yoga or bhakti yoga is helpful for us. That's the overall aim. And therefore we should not shirk from doing this in our own duties. That's the whole idea. Thoda bhi karo so it helps.
Thank you.
On that count, thank you so much. Vishwarup, we can have a conversation later in the evening today. And, we can take care. All the best and we will catch up.